Welcome everybody to the Fantasy Golf Insider Webcast and Podcast. I'm Jeff Bergerson, joined as always by my partner, Zachary Turcotte, the mysterious one on DraftKings. We're with FantasyGolfInsider.com. We have all the research tools and articles you need to win playing DFS golf. If you've not become a premium member yet, go ahead and do it this week. We got two events for the price of one this week. We're not even charging more. How nice is that?
It's okay.
All right. We have the FedEx Cup playoffs coming up. Then we have fall golf, and a lot of attention is going to go toward the NFL, but we found that, fall golf can be very profitable. We got a bunch of guys coming in off the web.com tour. So if you know who these guys are, and we will let you know who these guys are, fall golf can be good too.
And with New York coming back into the mix, and I'm seeing a couple other states get provisionary deals in place to bring DFS back, I think the market's going to be nice and big in the fall.
Yeah, it is.
So that's really exciting. And I already told our web.com contributor this afternoon, I said to gear up, get studying.
Absolutely.
We're going to have him out there doing some extra periscopes once the fall season rolls around, because that's information is going to be in high demand. And we're the only ones that are covering it right now.
Right.
So
this broadcast is also available in podcast form on iTunes and Stitcher. Give us a 5-star review on there. Write something real nice about us would be nice. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yeah, or something funny that I can read on the air. Either one.
Before we dive into this week's action, we do have the John Deere Classic. We have the Olympics. Let's talk a little bit about the Travelers last week.
Yeah.
What do you got to say about the Travelers? Sum it up in 50 words.
A little frustrating in terms of the GPP selections. Brendan Grace, for whatever reason, can't find a stroke on this course at all. Missed the cut for the second year in a row, which was really surprising and disappointing because he's handled these par 70 courses really well. Had a win, obviously, at the Heritage. Did really well at the Open Championship. Did really well at the U.S. Open. So it seemed like he would play a little bit better than what he did. So
and he did
that
not.
hurt us.
Yep.
And then at the bottom, Chad Campbell was looking like he'd be in great shape. He was kind of my low price value guy for the week in the sleeper price range at 6,200. He's 2 under par coming to the back 9 and shoots 4 over. I mean, just missed everything. Played terrible.
Yeah, he sucked.
Didn't really have a chance on those back 9, so that significantly hurt. Overall cash was okay. It was kind of a split week overall. We had one that was definitely in the win range, one that was definitely in the loss range, and then the other one was
depended on the contest.
Sort of right in the middle. And for me, it won in the $100 game, and then it lost in the $50 game that I had it on. And that's kind of an interesting point when I look at it, because a lot of people ask me each week, well, what do you do? Do you play in these $5 double ups where there's 25,000 people in there, or do you just put your money onto one of the $100 games where there's only maybe 100 or 150 people on there? And I always tell them, play up. And the reason I tell people to play up is because when you have, the larger the field that you have, the higher the winning score always is, and the higher the average score always is, whether it's in the $3 GPP or the $300 GPP. The $3 GPP always has a higher score, and it always has a higher cash line. So the higher up that you play, or for what I have found, the higher up that I play with most of my double ups, those ones that are just barely in or out, I'm typically winning if I buy in for a higher dollar amount, and typically losing if I'm in the $5 or $10 or $25 range. So it's something to think about and consider each week, because I track it pretty closely throughout the season. I usually just throw in a few $5, a few 25, 50s, and a few hundreds, just to see how they do. And there's always just a little bit of a slanted line there in terms of finishing position. And so that's just from experience alone and from what I've seen in GPPs and doing these double ups. I would say to play in the slightly higher dollar buy-ins overall. It gives you just a little bit of an edge when it comes to either cashing or not cashing in close events.
Okay. Anything else that you took away from the Travelers?
There was a decent round yesterday, I heard. I mean, yeah. This guy went out there and did something that nobody has ever done before. So, I mean,
cool.
Had he just put, and just thinking about it from a fantasy golf player's perspective, because this was what I was thinking as I was watching Jim Furyk yesterday. I'm not looking so much at the 58 that he put up on the board. I'm looking back at the putts that he missed.
Yeah.
From 10 feet, from 7.5 feet.
But he also holed out, though.
Yes, he did. that helped out too. But just because we're never satisfied as fantasy sports fans, the first thought was, yeah, it was a 58, but really it probably should have been a 56. So, I mean, it was a pretty amazing round. If he had not played like horse shit the rest of the weekend,
right.
he probably would have been. He would have been right in the mix. I mean, that could have been not only a historic finish, but could have just come from absolutely out of nowhere and won the thing, because 14 under ended up winning it. He was minus 11 and he shoots minus 12 just in a single round. I mean, the guy was actually fighting to make the cut on the second day. So
the greatest part about it was they actually showed live golf before.
I couldn't believe that. I got a notice on my phone and it fell out of my hand. What's going on?
Live golf? What the hell?
Wow, on the golf channel?
Should be pre-game going on now.
Can they do this? Do they have anybody awake up in the stands? They can actually position camera guys out there and commentators.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So we got to watch Miguel.
That was pretty cool.
Carballo play, and we got to watch Jim Furyk play.
So, question for you: who would you have rather been yesterday, Jim Furyk or Russell Knox?
Oh, that's interesting. Because I think that,
obviously Knox won a whole lot more money,
right?
But Furyk put up enough, something that
I think
never been done.
I think monetarily, Furyk over the long run will be able to capitalize more.
And he's got a ton more money. He's got so much in career earnings.
So I think you take the 58. I mean, Furyk he's won before. He's won plenty of events before. He's won plenty of money on the tour. So I think you take the 58.
So if you were in his position, but that's a tough. I was thinking about that.
I mean, it kind of depends on who you are on the tour. It depends if you're like a young kind of nobody who really needs a tour win,
right,
to be able to stick around for the next couple of years. Then I think you want to win the tournament. But if you're somebody who's like Furyk, I think the prestige of the 58
I agree with that.
Is probably a lot more important. So I think, without further ado, I think that probably is our shot of the week.
All right.
A record-breaking round that hasn't ever been touched and probably won't be for a few more years.
Thanks to all of you who tuned in last week for Periscope. I did it.
That's
you
bullshit.
owe me
I didn't
a
agree
steak.
I didn't agree to any of this.
That was awesome. If you didn't tune in, thanks to all of you that did, because our bet was
we didn't make a bet.
Yes, we did.
You have to accept a bet for there to be a bet.
Yeah, well, he accepted it. So if we had more than 175 people viewing Periscope at one time, you were to buy me a porterhouse steak. So then while we're on there and the numbers are climbing rapidly, someone proposes that, hey, if we double that 175, does that mean he has to buy you 2 porterhouse steaks?
Yeah.
And I said, yes. That's exactly what we'll do.
We'll have a great time at Golden Corral next week.
Well, whatever. But so we also had a winner, Michael Simons. We had a black hoodie contest. I said I would give out a black hoodie for the person who finished highest in the $3 birdie. He only it was like in the thousands or something, so it wasn't tremendous. But I didn't hear from anyone else. So goes out to you, buddy. Congratulations on that. But it was a fun Periscope. I looked down and I'd been on like an hour and a half. And I was just kind of going with the flow. Everyone was still on there.
You were
just
looking pretty haggard.
I was, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Well, I always look haggard.
Out of it. Yeah. It must have been a long day.
We chat about everything though, so it was pretty fun. So good times. Wacky wager.
Oh, we had another guy who was one of our favorites, friend of the show. Ron,
who's that?
Ron Van Elsis.
Oh yeah, Ron Van Elsis won
qualified for the Fantasy Golf World Championships yesterday.
That's awesome.
That's coming up in the next couple of weeks. So congratulations on that, Ron. Good job.
Absolutely great work.
We didn't have anybody step up this week for the wacky wagers.
Oh, jeez, really?
I know I'm feeling a little bad. I've only collected 4 golf clubs over here. Be sure to get me some kind of exciting wager. I've gone as low as just a golf ball, which is back here, a little John Daly golf ball or whatnot. So it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but it can. I'm not going to turn you down if you do put up something substantial. So no wacky wager from last week, but let's get it going again this week. Maybe I'll do an extra one to make up for it. I'll do one for the John Deere and one for the Olympics.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we talk about it? What do you want to talk about first? I'll leave it completely up to you. Actually, no, we'll talk about the Olympics.
Fantastic.
They have the bigger contests.
Favorite, right?
Yeah.
If you watched last week, you know what a huge fan I am of the Olympics and how excited I was after my rant to see that they put out a huge contest.
Yeah, a huge contest out
almost
there.
in response to my angry rhetoric last week. So
Olympic course, which is a brand new course. We don't have any tournament history there. However, the designer of the course, the architect Gil Hans, has obviously designed a lot of other courses, including like Doral. He had some renovations at TPC Boston. I don't think those correlate. Doral is a completely different course than this. This is more, if you were to compare it to something, it would be more of a link style course. I was talking with Pat Mayo. He liked to compare it to Pinehurst a little bit. No rough. It's all going to be like native area where it's going to be like sand and brush and shit. Kind of desert-like conditions.
really scenic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like Augusta, right?
Gil Hans says he compares it most closely to Castle Stewart, which is in Scotland. And the Scottish Open is played there, so why don't you look back at the tournament history there. It was played there this year and then 2011 through 2013. So take a look at the results, see who's played well in the Scottish Open. No rough, no trees, like I mentioned. It's a par 71, 7,100 yards, so it's not very long. He also compares it to like an Australian sandbelt course. So if you want to look at Aussie-type players, you could do that as well, or people who play well on the Aussie Tour.
You know, for all the great ones that showed up this week.
Yeah, that's right. Breaking down some stats. Let's just, for this, since we don't have course history, let's just go with the standard. We'll put them on our model. So take a look at our model and see what we go. There'll be strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained putting, birdies are better, mostly. So we'll set those. And if you want to adjust them, absolutely feel free. Just download it, and it's completely interactive, so you can just change the numbers however you see fit on the model.
Sounds good.
You want to talk about some players?
I do.
Rather tight pricing. If you've pulled up the prices, you will notice that if you would like to roster Henrik Stenson, you have to average $7,500 for your remaining 5 guys.
Which is garbage.
If you've looked at that range down there, it's a scrap heap. And a lot of guys that most people haven't heard of.
Yeah, fortunately, we've been on top of the European Tour for the last few months. That's a huge advantage. So for all the guys that are out there who've been playing the Euro Tour, now all of a sudden you've heard of Nicholas Colsertz. You've heard of...
I don't give away all of them.
I'm saying they've heard of them. I didn't say I liked them.
Oh, Perry did his preview column, so he's got several of the unknown names. Be sure to check that out. You're going to do kind of a synopsis in your daily spin of some of them as well, and obviously on the model you'll see who we like. So we'll talk about a couple of them.
It'll be a tight breakdown. I mean, there's only 60 guys.
That's right.
It's a no-cut event, so I'd like to be a little more stars and scrubs with my lineups. Unfortunately, the bottom of this field is so weak and almost unrecognizable. With a lot of the names that are down at the bottom, it makes it really hard. You're going to see a lot of guys that are going to be pouring into their home countries or whatever random tiny tie they have. I mean, they're so patriotic, waving the flags for whatever random country. They live here, basically, for years and years. And then the Olympics come up, and all of a sudden, they're waving the flag of China, they're waving the flag of Venezuela. They're going back home to represent their country and their patriotic duties. And so, I'm really moved by the whole display this week. So you're going to see guys that jump off of the web.com tour. You're going to see
a lot of Asian tour
guys. You're going to see some handful of amateur kind of players that are out there. So the bottom of the field, even though the typical construction for a lineup in a no-cut event would be to go pretty heavy in terms of the stars. You'd lock down 3 stars at the top and then try to grab 3 guys that could just do something for you at the bottom. I'm probably not going to take that approach this week, just because I don't really trust a lot of the guys that are in that low to mid 6,000 range. So you can start a lineup with Stenson and then have 5 other guys sort of between that 7,500 down to 7,000 range. You can get by with that, but you absolutely cannot do a lineup this week where you start with Stenson
and Sergio
at the top.
No,
because the rest of your team is going to be totally unrecognizable at the bottom, and you're not going to win with a team like that. So I would probably opt to stay away from that top range, not because I don't like those guys, because I think Stenson probably could do pretty well here. I mean, definitely. we just saw him handle a link style course pretty well.
Slightly.
Almost pretty much a record breaking performance at the Open Championship So I think there's a good chance that he does well. But I think that you're better off just dropping down, even if you just drop down to somebody like Martin Keimer to start off your teams and then fill in the rest with that 8,000 to 7,000 range. I think you're going to be a lot better off overall in terms of results.
That's fair. I think ownership is going to gravitate toward, I think, Stenson, and then I also think Reed is going to be heavily owned. You know, he's been waving the Olympic flag, so he's going to be a popular selection, and I like him this week.
This would be a good chance for Patrick Reed to just flip his image on its head.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is the chance of a lifetime.
But he gets kind
here.
of fiery in these international events.
Yeah, for sure. It brings out the best in him. If he could get up on the podium and bring home a gold medal, he would just become beloved within the U.S. It would just sort of push back all the other garbage that he had from his college days and some of his early pro days. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing Patrick go out and do something there.
Dropping down a little bit, Emiliano Grillo, obviously, I like at 9,600.
Definitely.
A lot of value there. I also like Rafa Cabrera-Bello, 9,200. 4 guaranteed rounds, no cut. So Rafa is a DK point monster. He's going to rack up the DK points, so I like him as well. If I go with a balanced approach, which I think I'm going to do, I'll have those two guys in a lot of lineups.
Sure. And so as I was saying before, there are quite a few Europeans on the tour. I probably will weight more towards the European players that have played quite a bit overseas this year as opposed to the U.S. players. Some of the U.S. players are going to do fine in terms of links. I mean, these are all elite players coming over for the U.S. I may not be quite as excited about Bubba Watson, as he doesn't tend to handle the links style courses very well. He doesn't usually do very well at either U.S. Opens or Open Championships. So that might be a guy that I don't necessarily load up on. But the other guys do tend to handle it pretty well. I'm going to be looking at guys. You mentioned Grillo before, who I like. Another guy that we were talking about just before we started here, which I think will be a guy who's actually a little bit under-owned, is Padraig Harrington. A couple months ago, I probably wouldn't have considered him at all. He was not playing very well at the start of the season. Now, fast forward a little bit, and he's made 6 or 7 straight cuts. And he started a lot of this strong play over on some of these European events, and he played really well leading up to the event. And he's an older player, so people tend to shy away from those older names.
I don't think they're shying away from Harrington this week.
It's hard to say.
I think he'll be owned by 15+%.
In this small of a field, with so many players, there's probably 15 to 20 guys that are virtually unplayable. Yeah. So it's going to be tough to get away from any ownership. Right. I think what you just have to do is sort of adjust your parameters upward overall. So in most weeks, if you look at some of the larger GPPs, you'll see an aggregate exposure level of maybe 75%. I mean, that's sort of the magic number. Week after week, if you look at the $3, the $300, 75% total ownership. That's kind of that magic number. But for events like this where there's no cut, smaller field, you got to hedge that upward, especially if you think that one of the bigger names is going to win, who's going to have 25 or 30% ownership. So I would probably push that number closer to the 90 to 100% range in terms of most contests. So in that regard, I think 15% still keeps you on the lower end overall as far as a low ownership, but reasonable play.
Harrington is one of the higher guys who rank in our sportsbook odds versus the DraftKings pricing model this week. He's up there. There's a couple other names. Go on there and check them out, but he's definitely up there. So he's going to provide value. Dropping down a little bit in the 6K range. Anyone standing out to you that you like?
There's a couple of names that are down there, and I like them this week in that it being a no-cut event, you can take some more chances. So I think a name last year that was very popular just because people like to say the name incorrectly usually, but Joust Luiten is in play this week. And he's actually had some really nice moments on the European Tour this season, but he's also been volatile. He's been a guy who's been priced high and he's finished well, or he's just completely blown the cut. So there's no cut this week. So I love him at 7,500. I think that's where he's at this week, right in that middle range. He definitely has the upside, and if he doesn't play quite up to speed, I still think he's going to finish in the top half of the field. So he's not going to destroy you if you take a shot with him at 7,500. And there's a couple other names down there as well. Gregory Bordy at 7,000.
That's my guy at 7,000.
Perfect. I'm glad I stole him.
You stepped on him.
So he's been
about him.
He's one of the guys over in Europe. You haven't seen him too much over here in the States, but he's actually played really well. He had a real nice appearance out at Oakmont, which I think surprised a lot of people. He was one of the really low-priced guys who was fairly under-owned that week.
Yep. But he followed it up with a good effort at PGA championship too.
So he's been really solid, just peppering his finishes with top 25s all year. And so at 7,000, I think he's probably one of the better buys that you're going to get down in that lower range.
Okay. Is that good for Olympic talk? Should we?
I hope so.
Pivot to the John Deere Classic. John Deere Classic, obviously a TPC Deere run. It's going to be a scoring fest as it always is. 7,268 yards. It is also a par 71. Key stats, strokes gained, tee to green, birdies or better is obviously going to be a big stat this week. Par 4 and 5 scoring. Guys who are going to put up, birdies and eagles are going to be your best bet this week. So
the contests are really light.
You think?
Over there this week. I was a little underwhelmed, DraftKings.
Was it like 30 people in the $300 contest?
Yeah, I think the initial $3 had 9,000 or some odd entries.
Winner wins $2,000 or something.
And I think I know why they did that. Having seen what was going on previously, I have a very good idea of what's going on as far
conspiracy theory.
as a little bit.
Oh, okay.
A little bit. But I'm not gonna say it right here on the webcast.
Okay.
I'm gonna save that for my article this
Ooh.
week. So definitely be sure to check that out tomorrow or Wednesday when I finish it.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Looking at the field this week, it's a little
Zach
bit
Johnson.
It's Zach Johnson tournament. It's really ugly at the top because they don't even have the star power that would usually provide 2 or 3 extra big names.
Yeah,
for this
Spieth is
tournament.
usually here.
Right, and as the defending...
Why isn't he here? Would you explain that to me? What the hell is going on?
I don't know. Maybe
He was so loyal to the John Deere before that he would go there the week before the Open Championship. And he was just this guy who was just going to stay loyal.
And he won it last year. He's not even going to defend his title there this year. I don't understand.
He's not playing in the Olympics. Can't make it to John Deere. I don't know what the hell.
And I don't think he's going to play at the... he's probably not going to play at the Wyndham then either. So is he not going to play till the FedEx Cup?
Probably.
Then?
Yep.
So I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know why he would. I mean, his game is... Maybe he just feels like he played so much at the beginning of the season. He could be hitting a wall a little bit at this stage where he just needs to kind of get his head together, take a little bit of a break, and then be there to make a charge again down the stretch. He's in position, obviously, so he still has a very good chance if he can get hot and make a little bit of a run here.
So are you rostering Zach Johnson, or are you just on complete fade mode because of his ownership going to be 30+%?
I started to do our ownership percentage this afternoon. And I started him out around like 30 or so.
Yeah.
And went through and ran the numbers and realized it wasn't even going to be close.
Could be more.
To filling up the range by a long shot. So I had to go back in, rerun the numbers. And I'm thinking that Zach Johnson is probably going to be 40% owned this week.
That's fade town for me.
I think you have
in
to.
GPPs.
For sure in GPPs and even in cash.
Even in cash.
At 13,000,
that's bananas for Zach Johnson.
If you roster Zach Johnson in cash for 13,000, then you've got $7,400 per player. And if you look down at that $7,400 range this week,
yeah, not good.
It'll make you want to choke yourself. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So
yeah.
Yeah, it's not. Right. It's not good. It's not good. So beyond Zach Johnson, then if we are looking for a pivot, there's not. I don't know that there's definitely going to be a lot of good pivots off of choking yourself at the top. Because I think what happens is that everybody is going to sort of stack up near the top, because there are a lot of guys up here near the top of the range who have pretty strong tournament histories. I think Steve Stricker. I don't know if we'll ever see Steve Stricker at 11,000.
I don't ever want to see him up there.
$800.
I'm not interested.
Again. And it's really tricky with him. He had obviously 3 years in a row where he was first place, but if he ends up in 30th place or something
then it's
like that,
devastating. Yeah,
yeah, it is. It definitely hurts you quite a bit up there. So, who do you want to start your rosters with? Are you going to start with any of these top tier guys?
If I were to go toward a guy in that top range, and I don't think I will, but John Rahm, I think he is the type of guy who can score. He can put birdies up in bunches at this course. So I think I would gravitate toward him as opposed to like Summer Hayes or Nah. I feel like Rahm is the guy who I like up in that range. I will probably stay more balanced with my teams this week because I think there's some decent options in the 7 and 8K range. So,
how are you feeling about Robert Garrigus after last week?
Yeah,
We had a Periscope follower who was particularly excited about him, and you completely blew the guy off. You told him what a garbage pick Garrigus was.
I didn't say that. I said I wasn't interested.
And he kindly reminded you 4 or 5 times over the weekend that you completely missed on.
Well,
Garrigus.
He must have made a ton of money if he was that adamant about Robert Garrigus. He must have crushed this week.
Well, are you on him this week? He's been having other than missing the cut up in Canada a few weeks ago. He's been having a pretty good season.
No.
No Garrigus again?
I'm not really on Garrigus.
You're going to make a stand?
I'll make a stand.
You're going to be obstinate?
Sure, I will. Yeah? I'll do it.
Okay, that's fine.
And if I get little eyes icons on Twitter sent at me again, then that'll be fine. Fuck.
Then you'll take it and you'll breathe. Yeah.
Okay.
We're going down the list a little
Whatever.
bit. There are some interesting ones here at the top. We've got Brian Harmon, who is moving up towards Hudson Swafford territory for me in terms of disappointment level, because each time I throw that guy onto a roster, he comes in on good form. He's only got a handful of courses. He's only got a handful of courses where he plays really well. Last week was one, and
hurt me bad.
Absolutely collapsed down the stretch.
Yep.
But this is an event that he has won before. He has 2 other top 25 finishes. He's coming off of a miscut.
Yep.
At $8,700, do we fire a second bullet? I say yes. What say you?
Sure.
This is the kind of hard-hitting analysis that you get on a webcast.
I'm just not that fired about
basis.
the John Deere Classic, honestly.
Let me get you going over here.
All right. Well, what do I need to? You need to just fire me up. But you're not all that fired up this week. Last year you were on fire. You're slamming Red Bulls. This week I don't even know what you're doing. It ain't Red Bull.
Contests are so small this week.
That's what I'm saying.
It really was tough to get motivated for. When I talk about bankroll management this week, I mean, you can play 1 or 2 cash lineups, play a couple of smaller GPPs.
Right.
But I probably will play maybe a third or a quarter of my normal bankroll.
Well, I'm not going to take the time to build a ton of rosters for the $3 like I do every week.
When there's only 9,000
there's no upside
entries available. In the 300, there's 35.
Right. So I won't even enter that.
So it's really tricky. It's tough to get my entries, because I mean, how tragic would it be if you finally put together that dream week of lineups?
And you won the $3?
You roll ahead, you crush everybody, and the prize
$2,000,
and the prize was like 1/20th of what it normally is. So that'd be a little bit.
Yeah, that would hurt.
It would be.
I don't want to win. I'm not going to enter because I'll be more pissed off if I win than if I don't win.
Save my one time for a future week.
That's right.
To be disclosed later on in the middle of the weekend. But yeah, there's not a lot that I get too excited about.
It's like winning a poker tournament at the fucking Mirage, as opposed to the World Series of Poker.
Yeah, you were like the July 6th or 7th, 7 p.m. Mirage $65 buy-in.
I was more
champion.
pissed off that I got a nice run of cards than if I wouldn't have. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I believe you. I saw the look on your face. I was more excited than you were.
Oh, definitely you were more excited than I was. All right.
So are there any names that you're
really
excited about?
I don't care.
There's no. Wow.
You talk about some 6K guys.
6K.
There's a lot of red on that paper there, Zachary. All right, 7K.
There's a couple of names. Right. There's a couple of names. I think Adam Hadwin is playable at 7,500. He's had a pretty decent season.
Yep.
He did pretty well here last year. If you want to roll the dice in the 6K range, he hasn't been great since returning from his heart attack, but Jason Bone is down at 6,600. He's had a pretty decent tournament history. He's either kind of missed the cut or else he's made a pretty good run here overall. So I like him. Dropping down, Spencer Levine at 7,400, I think, is a guy who is definitely in play this week. I looked at him. At 6,900, the mustache. Stat Boy's favorite play.
The mustache.
As always, he doesn't even have a stash now, does he?
Not anymore, I don't think.
It's Johnson Wagner, but he's
no good.
He's been in the top 10 here the last 2 years, which will attract a lot of attention. I think he'll probably at least get up to that 10 to 15% range.
Really? You think so? That many?
Well, but the field is so weak down here. The field is so weak. He'll be at 10. I think he definitely will get to 10 for his price because guys are going to want to own the top players. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to try to stack one or two of these guys here near the top, and if they do that, they're going to have to drop down below $7K to get a guy like Johnson Wagner. I think Sean Stephanie is starting.
I like
to turn
Stephanie
around
actually this week. He's turning it around. He's a birdie maker. He can get on hot runs. So
and he was great for us last year. I mean, he had a stretch where he was making cuts. He was in the top 25 week after week, and then at the beginning to the middle of the season, just terrible.
I watched him personally melt down at the PGA Championship. Oh my God,
that was kind of where it started last year, where things got a little bit on the ugly side. 8,200 for Chris Stroud. Wow.
Ooh,
that's and this is another Stroud event. 7 for 7 making the cut here over the years.
Yeah, so, he made the cut last week.
And he made the cut last week at one of his events. So take him. Take a good look at him.
I'm good with Swafford at 8K. I think he's
so.
Just playing.
Yeah, he's made 7 or 8 straight cuts now. Never finishes particularly high, but I like him for cash games. If you need a guy to fill a roster spot to get through cash, I think Swafford is okay.
Yep.
I'm going to throw out a couple more names down here just because I wanted to see your reaction when I throw out Vaughn Taylor. That's the reaction I was waiting for, too, right there. Stone cold, right there. He's another guy who's, after missing about 10 straight cuts or whatnot, is
right after he won.
Yeah, he took a mental vacation there for a little while, but he's been playing much better. He's made 4 straight cuts. He's made 6 of his last 8. And this has been one where he's been reasonably good over time, and so he's another guy at 6,900. You'll need guys like that in the lower range. So if you want to join the Sahil bandwagon, you can own some Vaughn Taylor this week down at 6,900. And I hope I didn't give away all of my secret picks there. There's a couple other names.
Your secret picks?
Yeah, there's a couple other names that are reasonable to take a look at, but there's not a lot that
there
I
isn't.
love. So take it easy this week, both in the Olympics and in the John Deere. There's no reason to get real crazy.
If you're watching this on Tuesday, well, the contests for the John Deere have already filled up, so...
Exactly. We'll just build some for ourselves to send off to you guys that we can fill on our own. But,
what else you got to say?
There's not too much. It's one of those weeks where you're happy that there's golf. I think once the Olympics gets going a little bit...
Oh, yeah.
We'll probably see, a couple of 2-hour blocks of coverage here and there, in and around Michael Phelps and gymnasts and track and field folks.
Pretty much.
So I don't know what the coverage will be like. Hopefully it'll be just amazing. Hopefully they can devote one of their 12 channels that they've been covering the Olympics with to just golf, so we'll get some reasonable coverage. I think once it gets rolling, it'll get exciting. I think once it finally gets to Sunday and the realization of the medals.
I think it'll be cool.
I think people will get excited. I think initially... probably not so exciting, but it's a different dynamic with an event like this, which does kind of confuse me in terms of gameplay because there's only 3 medals that are up for grabs.
Correct.
So it's going to be tough. How are guys going to play on day 2, 3, 4 when they're in 25th place, 30th place, 20th place?
Pride for your country.
But I mean, we see most of these guys don't even have pride enough to show up on Sunday when there's actual money on
dollars.
The line. So I'm really curious as to how the dynamic will play out. Are we going to see those guys make big runs out of nowhere? Because on Sunday, a guy like Furyk yesterday, how many extra probably made a couple $100,000.
Oh, for sure.
For his amazing round. Obviously, he'll make more beyond that. But what is a guy going to make if he charges up from 36th place to 14th place in the Olympics?
Well, nothing, but I think the guys who are coming from the web.com and the other outlying small tours don't make any money anyway. So they're not going to kick it in. They're going to be playing hard the whole time. I think it's the big names from the European Tour and the PGA Tour who might do that.
So yeah, I think it'll play a little bit differently in that regard, just because there's not going to be as much on the line. But for the guys who are in the medal hunt at the end, I think it'll be really
interesting.
Intense. I think it'll be exciting once it finally gets here, and I'll stop being a curmudgeon about it.
So would there be a playoff between, what if they're tied for 3rd? Would there be a playoff for the bronze?
Oh, boy. You know what?
I don't know what they would do.
You just blew my mind, man.
That's a lot to think about. Well, I guess we'll find out.
I haven't thought about it that far. Yeah.
That's going to do it for us. Email us with any questions at info@fantasygolfinsider.com. On Twitter, we're @fantasygolfers. catch Zach on Periscope on Wednesday night at 9, unless he has something better to do, and then I'll fill in for him.
So if we get 3,000 viewers of Periscope on
You won't
Wednesday
have to
night,
buy me a steak. 2 steaks.
perfect.
And Jason's doing his Periscope
on Tuesday night.
on Tuesday nights at 9 Central.
time.
Okay, that's
as
cool.
well.
So you got 2 Periscopes, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, to answer all of your last minute lineup questions.
Yeah.
That's a lot of us.
And maybe we'll put Stat Guy on at midnight on Fridays.
We should do that. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck with the Olympics. Good luck with the John Deere, and we'll see you next week.
Good luck.